Hello, and welcome to Life Diaries, a space where the pages of life open up, one story at a time. These are tales written by experience, spoken from the heart. Take a moment for yourself, and let's begin. If only he survives, if only he stays alive, whispered Mary Thompson, hurrying to the hospital. The call informing her of the disaster had reached her at work. Her only son, her Andy, was now there, behind the hospital walls. Andrew was on an excursion with his classmates when their minivan collided with a truck. By a miracle, most of the children got away with a scare, but Andrew and one other girl were less lucky. The teacher said Andrew was the most severely injured. Mary flew up the stairs to the third floor, where the intensive care unit was located. Only now, in this feverish rush, did it dawn on her. She hadn't called her husband. Wally, can you hear me? Andy's in intensive care. A truck hit the minivan. Come to City Hospital 5 immediately, I'm on the third floor. Walter Davis, dropping everything, rushed to the hospital. Suddenly, the memory of how eagerly he had awaited his son's birth surfaced. He and Mary had been married for 17 years, and their only son was just 9. 8 long years of waiting. And then it was here, the miracle of birth. Walter remembered holding Andy for the first time, walking with the stroller in the park, teaching him to ride a bike. Tears streamed down his cheeks of their own accord. He imagined how hard it must be for Mary now, and tried with all his might to compose himself, to support her rather than add to her grief with his appearance. Approaching the hospital, he glanced in the rearview mirror. He seemed to look all right. Mary sat in the corridor near the intensive care unit doors, head down, quietly sobbing. It seemed her strength for loud crying had run out. Seeing her husband, she jumped up from the chair and rushed to him. Wally, they still haven't said anything. I don't understand why they're silent. Calm down, Mary darling. They will definitely give us news. We just need to wait. Everything will be all right. It just has to be all right. Approximately half an hour later, a doctor came out of the unit. Are you the boys' parents? He asked, addressing them. Yes, they answered in unison. I have 2 pieces of news for you. The first, and most important, your son will live. The second, he is in a coma. The doctor continued, explaining that he couldn't give exact timelines for coming out of the coma. Andrew had a very serious head injury, and making future predictions was difficult for now. Overall, let's be patient and wait, he said. The sooner he comes to, the better. Walter pulled the doctor aside slightly. Tell me, doctor, maybe something is needed? Medication? Some special supplies? Just tell us. We'll find and buy everything. No, material help won't help here, the doctor replied. Right now, you need to pray, believe, and wait. But you can go home today. They won't let you see him anyway. Come back tomorrow. No matter how much Mary pleaded with the doctor, he remained adamant. You couldn't see her son. Period. With heavy hearts, they went home. The next morning, the parents were at the hospital with the dawn. They hadn't been able to sleep normally. All their thoughts were consumed by worry for their child. Walter found the doctor and inquired about Andrew's condition. Indicators are stable, but he hasn't regained consciousness, the doctor reported. Today you can stay with him and even remain overnight. And here's a piece of advice from my experience. Talk to him more. Patients who have come out of a coma often said they heard everything and followed the voices of their loved ones. Walter turned to his wife. How about you go home, rest a bit, change clothes, and come back for the night? I'll stay with him for now. And don't argue, you need to get at least a little sleep. Mary looked at her husband with surprise, as if seeing him for the first time. Do you seriously think I can sleep knowing the condition our child is in right now? I won't take a single step from here until the situation is clear. Don't ask. Don't try to persuade me. You go home yourself and bring me some comfortable clothes, and I'll stay with Andy." Walter knew his wife's character perfectly well and understood that persuading her was useless. So he went home alone to change clothes and get everything Mary needed. Mary sat in her son's room, holding his hand tightly and crying. How much she had gone through for this happiness, the birth of Andy, to become a reality. Endless examinations, tests, exhausting treatment that seemed like it would never end. And then, a miracle happened. She got pregnant. A difficult pregnancy, almost 6 months in the hospital for preservation, agonizing labor. But it was all for a reason, all for the sake of becoming truly happy. And now her happiness lay here, and nothing depended on her. This oppressive feeling of hopelessness weighed on her heart. She wanted to scream, to howl with pain, but she couldn't allow herself to do that within the hospital walls. Somehow gathering the last of her strength, she remembered the doctor's words. Talk to him more. And she decided to talk to her son. She recalled and told him various cheerful stories from his very early childhood, where they had traveled, what they had seen. In short, everything that came to her mind at that moment, she recounted aloud. 4 days passed. Andrew's condition remained unchanged. Indicators were stable, but no signs of the boy waking up were observed. Mary hadn't slept for 4 days straight. Her strength was running out, but her husband's and the doctor's pleas for her to get at least a little sleep had no effect. "I won't leave here, and I won't sleep until my son comes too," she insisted. "What if I fall asleep and he calls for me, and I'm not there? No, no, and absolutely no, don't even ask." But the body's reserves are not endless. Mary fell asleep right on the chair by her son's bed. She had an incredibly vivid and beautiful dream. She was walking with Andy in the park, and they had a dog with them. It was hard for Andy to walk. He leaned on a stick, so they went slowly, while the dog ran happily around them. Mary opened her eyes. What a realistic dream, she thought. "Son, my dear, come back to us. We love you very much and are waiting. You know, I just had such a wonderful dream. We were walking with you in the park with a dog. He's still small, black, seems like a Labrador. I know how much you want a dog. As soon as you get better and are discharged from the hospital, we'll definitely buy you a puppy," she continued speaking. "You know, I had a dog when I was little. I loved playing with her so much. She was my best friend. And you'll have a dog. You'll run with him, play ball. He'll sleep with you in your room. A dog is such joy and happiness. We'll even let you and Dad choose the breed yourself. Whichever one you want, that's the one we'll buy. Just come back." She began to cry. At that moment, she was ready to give everything in the world just to hear his voice and see him laughing again. Mom took her son's hand and suddenly felt a slight answering touch. Maybe I'm losing my mind from grief. The thought flashed. At that moment, Wally called, and Mary, unable to hold back tears, told him that it seemed to her that her son had slightly squeezed her hand. "Mary, darling, my love, I understand how much you want and are waiting for this," Walter replied. "But the doctor says there's no change yet. We need to wait." Mary herself understood this, but hope didn't let go. She picked up a book and decided to read aloud to her son for a bit. And suddenly she saw Andrew move his hand. This time she was absolutely sure. She hadn't imagined it. Mary rushed out to find the doctor. The doctor's examination, however, upset her. "This sort of thing happens," the doctor explained. "It could be a reflex, muscle contraction, anything. But it's not yet waking up. We'll wait." Mary was disappointed. She so desperately wanted to believe in a miracle. In the evening, Walter arrived to support his wife and spend time with their son. They sat together by the bed, talking quietly, remembering some touching moments from Andy's life. And suddenly they heard, "Mom. Mommy." Mary started at the unexpected sound, looked at her husband, and understood. He had heard it too. She grabbed her son's hand. "Son! My son! I'm here! Mom is here!" Andrew slowly opened his eyes and unhurriedly shifted his gaze from his mother to his father. "Dad," he whispered barely audibly. The parents couldn't hold back their tears. A miracle had happened after all. Walter rushed to get the doctor. Doctors crowded into the room, filling it halfway. They were examining something, checking equipment, taking measurements, and asked the parents to step out. Approximately an hour of various procedures later, the doctor called them over. "You know, this is truly some kind of miracle," he said, looking at them. "Your son is in a very satisfactory condition. There are minor issues with his leg, but that's recoverable. It's just a matter of time. What worried me most was the condition of his brain." The doctor added that a full examination would be done tomorrow, and then a final decision would be made. "But even now I can say that nothing threatens his full life," he assured them. "And for now, you can go back to him." Andrew recovered very quickly. He was discharged home within a week. He still had physical therapy and medication to take, but all of that could be done within their own walls. Finally, they were home. In the evening, over a celebratory dinner, the family discussed where to go for a vacation after Andrew's full recovery. But Andrew himself seemed uninterested in the conversation. He was very pensive. The father couldn't help but ask, "Son, did something happen? Are you not feeling well? Why are you so quiet?" "Dad, when are we going to get the dog?" "What dog?" the father asked, genuinely surprised. "Mom said we'd buy a dog." Not understanding anything, Walter turned to his wife. "Mary, could you come here, please?" "What happened?" Mom asked, surprised. "Tell me, please, when did we decide to buy a dog? I don't recall such a conversation. Andy says you told him that." Mary looked from her husband to her son in surprise, and then suddenly started to cry. "I said that when Andy was in a coma," she explained through tears. "I just had a dream that we had a dog and were walking with him in the park. So I suggested to Andy that we'd buy a puppy when he got better." "Oh, Dad, dear, let's buy a dog. Please, Daddy, please," Andrew begged. "I really want a dog, a living, real one." Now it was Dad's turn to be surprised. He hadn't expected this turn of events at all. Walter had always been categorically against animals in the house, and now it seemed he would have to give in. "And what kind of dog do you want?" he asked, already almost resigned. "A Labrador, a black boy, please." Tears flowed from his son's eyes again. The father, though considered strict, was not a man with a heart of stone. Looking at the tears of his son, who had only recently been between life and death, Walter decided to surrender. "All right," he said, "only one condition." Andrew tensed his whole body, looking at his father eagerly. Mary also waited anxiously for some strange conditions. But Dad surprised everyone. "We'll buy a black Labrador puppy, but—" He paused briefly, looking at his family with a smile. "Only with a pedigree." "Hooray! I'm going to have a dog!" Now Andy was crying with happiness, and Mom, who also loved dogs, cried with him. "Daddy, you're the best! Thank you!" When the father left the room, Andrew turned to his mother and quietly said, "Mommy, thank you. I know that if it weren't for you, I would never have a dog." Mary went to her son, hugged him tightly, and kissed him. "It's all right, son," she whispered. "I know what it's like to dream of a dog." They spent 2 weeks looking for a suitable puppy. It turned out that finding a black male Labrador was not an easy task. There were many girls, but the boys were sold out even before birth. Future owners signed up on waiting lists. But finally, luck smiled on them. Out of the 3 puppies offered, Andrew chose one, the one that seemed to him the most formidable. "Why did you choose this particular puppy?" the father asked. "Look, the others are more playful and cheerful." "No, this one is mine," Andrew replied confidently. "He's so sad. And you know why?" "Why?" the father asked, surprised. "Because he doesn't have a real friend. He's waiting for me. This is my puppy, Daddy. I saw him in my dream, and I've even thought of a name for him. Buddy." There was nothing to argue against such reasons, and the parents agreed that they would take this sad black little one. They had to pick up the puppy on Thursday. The father left work early. Initially, he planned to pick up his wife and son after work and go get the puppy together, but decided to make a surprise, pick up Buddy himself and come home with him. The whole day, Andrew and Mom diligently prepared for the arrival of the new family member. They went to the pet store and bought everything needed: bowls, food, toys, a soft mat, puppy pads, a leash. Closer to evening, they got dressed and waited for their father. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. "I wonder who that is," Mom said, surprised. "Mom, I'll get it!" Andrew exclaimed and rushed to the door. His father stood on the doorstep. In his hands, he held a small black ball of happiness. "Here, son, this is your Buddy," the father said, holding out the puppy. "Forgive me for going to get him myself. I just really wanted you two to meet sooner." Andrew carefully took the puppy in his arms, and Buddy immediately began licking his face. "Mommy! Mommy! Look, he recognized me right away!" Andy shouted throughout the apartment, and tears streamed down his cheeks again. "I can't believe I have a dog. No, not a dog, but the best friend. Parents, I love you very much." And tightly holding Buddy, he ran off to introduce his new friend to their room.